Get Rich Education is brought to you by Reef Oil and Gas Companies, partners in American energy production for world consumption.
Welcome to Get Rich Education with Keith Weinhold, giving you information and ideas on the investment that has turned more ordinary people into millionaires and billionaires than anything else, and can provide you with more wealth and happiness than you ever thought possible. Now, here's your host, investor, entrepreneur, business owner, and educator, Keith Weinhold.
Welcome to Get Rich Education, Show 16. I'm your host, Keith Weinhold. Last week, we discussed how to protect what you have. That's fundamental. Admittedly, it's not as fun as putting the deal together or obtaining money for the deal, whether that be your real estate investment or business startup or business expansion. Today, we discuss how to get money for your deal with perhaps the most connected funding expert in business today, Judy Robinett. She's the author of the new best-selling book, How to Be a Power Connector. Crowdfunding is the practice of funding a project or venture by raising many small amounts of money from a large amount of people, typically through the internet. You can see how this is done by checking out some of the better-known crowdfunding sites you might have visited before, like Kickstarter.com or Indiegogo.com, where people with businesses from startup filmmaking to food product ideas to helping Haiti residents with their health care, all in an attempt to gain investor capital or sometimes donor capital. Now, crowdfunding for real estate is better known by the term real estate syndication. That's a solution for when you find a great real estate deal yourself, you use other people's money to fund it, even the down payment, and you get a cut of the profits for your knowledge and your due diligence in putting the deal together. There are a lot of potential investors that know that real estate returns are good. They're out there and they know that, but they don't know how to do it themselves. Well, here's an opportunity where you can do it for them. You can see how this is done on a large scale at a site like realtymogul.com. But you can be a small-time version of Realty Mogul yourself if you have a real estate or business deal and you want to attract the dollars to your great idea or great concept. Now, you do need to follow Securities and Exchange Commission rules when you go ahead and do that. But just keep in mind that real estate is a relationship business, and building up your relationship capital can be as important as your financial capital. Now, relationship capital is less measurable than financial capital, yes, but if you lack financial resources, then being connected and in the right relationships can help you clear your financial capital hurdle. So here's Judy Robinett to tell you more about it. My guest today, Judy Robinett, is an investor, an advisor, and an author. In 2014, Inc. named her as the #1 business book, How to Be a Power Connector, and that's been featured in Forbes, Fast Company, Fortune, and the Huffington Post. Judy has more than 30 years' experience as an entrepreneur and a corporate leader, including management positions at Fortune 500 companies. Just listen to what Mark Burnett said about her. You might have heard Mark Burnett's name. He's the executive producer of shows like Shark Tank, The Apprentice, and Survivor. I mean, Mark Burnett, someone that has to coordinate talent, including Donald Trump, Barbara Corcoran, and Mark Cuban. This is what Mark said about Judy. Judy Robinett is amazing. With one email or phone call, she can put you in touch with anyone you need to know. So here she is, the power connector herself. Welcome to Get Rich Education, Judy Robinett.
Thank you, Keith. Delighted to be here.
It's great to have you. I think a lot of people have heard, sometimes frustratingly, that in life, and especially in business, it's not what you know, it's who you know. So before we get into that a little bit, how did you get to be this all-important go-to power connector of some of the most prominent business people in the nation and in the world.
Really by accident. I mean, when I was a kid, I was shy, I was bullied in high school. But I really focused, when I look back, what happened is I really focused on being generous and helping other people. And anybody can do that. You just start with where you are. And you find out that everybody has got problems and everybody has got solutions. So even, Mark Burnett needed help. Mark Cuban needed help. Many of my friends. Everybody does. So a couple of secrets, number one is join a powerful group. So I volunteered for a finance committee as a young adult at United Way, just so I could learn budgeting. And then as I got older, I found out that the money and wealth and influence kind of congregates around politics. And so I volunteered for a couple of political committees, and at one of those met 3 billionaires. And so I just really focused on getting out of my comfort zone, learning how to ask. So research shows if you're lower or middle class, you're taught not to ask. You're taught to work hard, keep your head down. And that was me, but I wasn't getting anywhere. I was stuck. And so I slowly, started doing this. And, years later, I've got just a wonderful, deep, wide, robust network.
You said an interesting thing about being a little bit quiet or a little bit shy. And I don't think my listeners know this about me yet. I grew up the same way. In fact, as a high school senior, I was voted as the most quiet and shy person in my entire class. And this isn't just some memory. This is documented in the yearbook with a photo. It's just crazy that you and I are on basically a talk show now.
And Keith, just so people know, half of the people in the United States identify themselves as shy. Half. But if a psychologist meets with them, it's less than 10%. But, the rest of us, people for years told me I was extroverted and I was this great networker, and I thought they were nuts. But, inside I'm worried about what people think. I'm worried about being rejected. How on earth could I talk to this person? And so, you have to get out of your comfort zone, and you really learn to focus on the other person. And as soon as you do that, it's just like popping a cork on a wine bottle. Then it takes all the focus off of you, and you listen to that other person and care about them.
Well, let's discuss a little bit then, just how do we talk to other people? How do we approach them? I see you as an authority on how to get money for a business startup or how to get money for a real estate deal. I've gotten early feedback from listeners, and that one recurring theme is that they need more money for deals. And Judy, you co-authored a chapter of the book, Crowdfunding for Dummies, so you would know how to get money for deals and how to talk to them. So if one wants to fund their business startup or their real estate investment, how does one really go about getting that right person in front of them and then creating that concise and compelling pitch?
Well, what you're talking about really is getting in the right room. And 90% of people really are in the wrong room, Keith. And I see this every day. People contact me about how do I get funded? And they're concerned there's no money out there. And let me just tell you, there's $369 trillion in global private wealth predicted by Credit Suisse in 2019. There is no lack of money. A year ago, an individual called me with $1 billion looking to invest. But the problem is people don't understand the ecosystem and how funding works. And so the number one thing is to get yourself educated. You can look at sites of VCs, angels, crowdfunding. There's specific sites for real estate crowdfunding like Flash Funders. Lending Home is kind of in the stealth mode. One of the top guys, founders at Indiegogo, Adam Chapnick, left and did that, and really look at get yourself educated on these different rooms. So, you typically start with friends and family, 30 to 60 billion. Next level up is angels, who fund 90% of the high potential deals. And then the next is VCs. And those people are all a little bit different. So you need a sales pitch or to develop your executive summary that would target them. And the best way to learn is to find a great pitch that you can look at the format. It needs to be limited to 15 slides, do your homework, be honest, and then do a dry run with an investor. And there's investors everywhere. In the United States, there's 775,000 accredited investors. You can go to incubators for help. And so there's no lack of resources. And I don't know whether you can attach this to the show notes, but I'm happy to send you some of the top documents on investors to avoid, how to get in the right room and some of that information.
You mentioned a few terms there. I just want to be sure that none of my listeners get left behind. The SEC, the Securities and Exchange Commission, has a definition for an accredited investor. There's a few details around it, but basically it's a person with a net worth of $1 million, not including equity in their home, or an annual income of $200,000. Why don't we talk a little bit about, Judy, is just what is an angel investor, and you mentioned a VC, which is a venture capitalist. I just want to be sure all my listeners know, what is the difference between an angel investor and a venture capitalist?
So the angel investors are an influent individual, doctors, dentists, professional people who've had exits out of company who like to invest. And the reason they do this is the annual return on investment for a startup is 27.3%. That beats the heck out of your savings account. And these people invest their own money. Oftentimes they congregate in groups, which are called angel groups. There's 330 angel groups in the United States. They specialize in, biotech, high tech, real estate. You can find them just by Googling online. Almost all of them have websites. A venture capitalist is a professional investor, and it is a business, and they invest other people's money. But this also includes what's called institutional money. So money from big corporations, from universities, from insurance companies. And so they look alike, but angels, they want 10x, 10 times the money back that they give you in less than 5 years. Whereas the minute you take a penny from a venture capitalist, you're probably out at least 10 years because they want 30x their money back. And if you just want to go look, so you can go look up Golden Seeds. I was a managing director of Golden Seeds. It's the third largest angel group in the United States, about 300 accredited investors. You can learn, there's all kinds of documents there. And then go look Illuminate VC, which is a venture capital company that I sit on their board out of Menlo Park. Cindy, the founder, is in the top 10% of performers. So, and it doesn't matter whether you're, going after an angel or a VC, they all will look at summaries. Then if you're lucky, you'll get invited to come and pitch. So you need a really good pitch deck. And then due diligence starts when they start really looking into your legal documents and if you really have a way to make money.
It may not take money to make money. Some say it takes money to make money, but maybe it could be more accurately stated is it does not take your money to make money. It sure does help, but as an alternative to hitting up your aunt or hitting up your dad for a loan, which might cause some family strain if they even have the resources at all, this is the modern day way to get money. And in regard to that, how do you get in the right room? And let's just talk a little bit more about that because it's so key to get in front of the right people. Like when I hear the right room, my mind just goes to the stereotypical, I do think of Shark Tank or I do think about getting in front of those people, but it's probably just as much or more important in order to go ahead and present yourself in a certain fashion virtually today. What does that look like for someone interested in getting money for a deal?
Absolutely. So it's really important, Keith, that people think about what is their goal. If your goal is to find funding, that's very different than, getting ahead in your job or finding a new career. So I always say focus on what your goal is. Be very clear about your goal. And then you need to know what resources do you need. Now, every resource out there is attached to a human being. Human beings write the checks for the deals. They've got the job offers, they've got the opportunities for real estate investments, all kinds of deals. And so you need to find out what resources you need, and then what people do you need to know, and where do they hang out? So this is a common, mistake that people make. I see them go to local networking groups over and over and over, and they're not finding any good deals or referrals. And, you feel like you're in a room of pariah. People come running at you with a business card. And I'll just share just a quick story. So when I moved to Salt Lake, I met a fellow named Byron who had been recruited out of state by a top wealth management company. And he didn't fit the local kind of conservative culture. He's Black and gay. And within a couple of years, he had really built a big book of business. And I said to him, you come from out of state, you don't have any network. What on earth did you do to do this? And he smiled and he said, I joined the symphony. That's where my people hang out.
Yeah.
So, it's important to think about where are those people. Now, people that are looking to do investments, they hang out at pitch events. They're at incubators. They're at anywhere there's startups. So there's, 1,000 incubators in the United States. Your local college, the local universities have them. You can follow, in your newspaper and find these different events. And if you go there, you're going to start rubbing shoulders with investors. Now, you mentioned online, the biggest change, disruptive, is crowdfunding. So they estimate that will be $300 billion that will be available. And interestingly enough, the largest vertical right now is real estate. And so again, I would get on those sites. I would look at both the donation sites plus the real estate ones that I mentioned earlier. Go look at Rocket Hub. Go look at different crowdfunding. But if you want just a good overview, there's a great book I recommend to people, and it is The Kickstarter Handbook by Steinberg. And it's just a short little book, and it has examples of people who've been successful and those have failed with a crowdfunding campaign. Talks about how critical it is to have that network built and some social proof so that people will come in and invest for you.
What is your definition of crowdfunding, and why is that important ever since new legislation in the Jobs Act made that available?
I call it the democratization of capital. So the reason it's so difficult to find VCs or get in the room with angels is there's these marketing efficiencies. If you need a lawyer or an accountant, you can Google, you can look in a phone book. But if you want to find $5 million, lots of luck. So it's all these marketing efficiencies. And what this did is it combined all the regular people out there, you and me, and let us peek into the world of deals and have the opportunity to donate to a campaign or to actually invest in a campaign. And it is a world changer. So I give speeches around the world. I was recently in Colombia helping them develop kind of a crowdfunding platform. And people are just excited because now they have access to everyday people who can just put in $25 is kind of the average for donations, and yet people are getting millions.
So you're globally connecting people. You are really the preeminent power connector in the United States. What are some good signals that you might be picking up that you could be detecting as a red flag that might be in a situation that you want to avoid? Because everyone that you're connected with all have this collective good reputation. And how do you keep that from being tarnished? How do you know what to stay away from?
So I watch carefully, and I learned this from getting bricks to the head, from making just horrendous mistakes. I mean, I almost went bankrupt once. I used to be too optimistic and trusting of people. So I started seeing some patterns, not only in my mistakes, but others. And I can say you need to do your homework on people, not only Google them, but find people who know them. So you look at reputation capital. I watch carefully for bad actors. I look to see if people have gravitas, a leadership, power, plus character. And two really critical things to look for is, are they generous? So the number one thing of a sociopath, and these people are drawn to power and money, so there's lots of them, they lack empathy. So I watch very closely. Are these people givers or takers? You've probably read Adam Grant's book. That's a good one. Do they lack empathy? Because just because someone can help you doesn't mean they will. So look if they're generous, if they're kind, they're authentic. The second person I avoid, besides the sociopaths, who are often charming, very, very bright. The second group I avoid is the narcissistic people, and it's all about them. And I kind of boiled it down to it's me, got you. And so those people can be dangerous as well. So I look at who else is in the deal. If you're an early investor, you want to make sure that you're in with other people so you can learn, because some angels are devils. And finally, if it's too good to be true, unrealistic returns, run, don't walk. So 96% of startups, companies in the United States, never make more than $1 million. So, if someone comes to you and says, oh my gosh, we're going to get 2% of all the people in China, we're going to make buckets of money, $1 billion in a year, that's foolish. That's an amateur that doesn't know what they're doing, and it's a scam artist. So, I look first at character.
Yeah, you really need to separate optimism from realism there. I just love the term that you used, reputation capital. A lot of people seek financial capital. That's largely what we're talking about here. But it really starts with reputation capital. That's a resource too. If a person doesn't have reputation capital, you got to ask yourself, do you want their financial capital? That's a great term.
Yeah, because there's bad money. I mean, there's good money and there's really bad money and there's dangerous money. These people that will sue you to try to take your company. And that's not an often common thing, but you do need to be aware of it.
What are some of the best ways today to use social media to connect with the right people, get money for the deal, get in the right room, get a partner, get someone of a good reputation?
So, the two sites that I really love for this are LinkedIn and Twitter, and they give you amazing accessibility to people, access. LinkedIn, for example, has 350 million people who want to network. So there's angel groups, there's venture capital groups, there's private equity groups, there's real estate investors. So search in there and look for groups. And that's a great thing to do. Second is Twitter. 2 years ago, my adopted son said to me, you need to start tweeting. And I thought he was nuts. I said, Preston, 140 characters, what do I say? I just got out of the bathroom. I mean, I was like really, I thought it was nuts. And I love Twitter. So Twitter allows you to connect to almost anybody, whether I have found people all over the world. And so the good thing is these platforms will allow you to connect to investors, thought leaders, almost anywhere that you need to get to. So on LinkedIn, you can target people. I use the word target, but you can actually search for people who are investors. You can look at their profile, check their social proof. How many endorsements do they have? How many recommendations do they have? Look at what they say, kind of read between the lines so you can pick up their character. So those are excellent ways.
Why aren't there more women in business, entrepreneurship, real estate? Why do you think that is still true here in 2015?
That's great. So I was at a world conference in New York, and I listened to Charlie Rose interview Madeleine Albright, and he said to her, why aren't more women in directors and CEOs and realtors? And she looked at him and she said, well, because you guys have all the power. But she said number two was women don't network, they make friends. But honestly, I think the access is they were kind of kept out of the good old boys club and they didn't form networks. Now that is changing. So if you're a woman listening to this, Springboard, which I'm an advisor to, is a not-for-profit that helps startups that are founded by women. To date, we've raised $6.4 billion. We've had 11 IPOs, 145 strategic sales. Golden Seeds is dedicated to founders who are female, and so getting funding. And so now we're starting to see some of those, but I think it's a combination of just historical lack of access to money. There's books out there, the self-confidence code, that argue part of it is genetic, that women lack self-confidence. They don't take risk as well as men do, but I'm seeing good progress finally.
Yeah, maybe technology and social media will make it somewhat easier to break that down. You're tuned to Get Rich Education. You are investing your time with our guest here, Power Connector Judy Robinett. More when we come back. I'm your host, Keith Weinhold. Are you looking for an investment with the potential to offer monthly cash flow and tax advantages? While prices fall at the pump, now could be the time to invest in oil and gas. In business for nearly 30 years, Reef Oil and Gas Companies has endured price fluctuations and understands the importance of creating opportunities by purchasing oil and gas properties during distressed times. Primarily focused on the Bakken Three Forks of North Dakota and the Eagle Ford Shale of South Central Texas, Reef's model is designed to generate revenue and provide tax advantages from the production of oil and natural gas. For more information on this investment opportunity, go to reefogc.com.
This is Rich Dad Advisor Garrett Sutton. To grow your wealth, listen to the always valuable Get Rich Education.
Welcome back to Get Rich Education with Power Connector Judy Robinett. Judy, what about your enormously popular book, How to Be a Power Connector, the 550-100 Rule, and what is the 550-100 Rule?
It started from Dunford's Law. The groups fall apart at 150. Even Roman armies only had 150 people per unit. And so I see people all the time, they're just frantically trying to get business cards and get gazillion people on LinkedIn or Facebook. But if I ask you, how many of those people really have your back and have your future? It's always less than 50 people. So that Dunford's number of 150 is kind of my top limit, although the average person knows 632 people. So the first ring of people that you're closest to is that 5. And it's 5 to 15 friends and family. And this is your love and support capital. These people love you, adore you, think the world of you. But they already know all the same people, all the same jobs. So it isn't valuable as the next ring, which I call kind of the key 50. And that key 50, what people usually do is they have people that are just like them. So if they're a real estate investor, they know everybody in real estate. They know the people at Zillow, Better Homes and Garden. I recently gave a speech at Hawaii Live. But if I ask them, do you know somebody at the Treasury Department or a top investor, they don't. And so then if they want to change careers or find investing, they hit the wall because they don't have a diverse, robust network that they can turn to when they need help. And then finally, that last circle of 100 is people that you can opt in or opt out because you'll change and you'll have different goals and different people will move in and move out of your network. And Charlie Munger, who is Warren Buffett's partner, once said out of 100 people he meets, there's 5 that are keepers he can't live without. There's 20 he doesn't want to see again as long as he lives. And the rest are opt-in. And I tell people, learn to become a keeper. And those are people you want in your network. So you find the really good people. We talked about how critical character was and people of gravitas. And also that they'll help you. They're generous. They will help you. They'll have your back. So I used to say that I only let people in my network who had a good head, a good heart, and a good gut. And I finally boiled it down to, is this person an Oprah or Martha Stewart? Now, they're both billionaires. They're really good at what they do. But I'm telling you, if I had to have one that I would trust my back, it would be Oprah. Now, that's due to my values. So you want to have people in there that have your values. So that really is how I created those circles. I wanted it to be simple, so people could do it very easily, that they didn't have to have a gazillion connections and spend an hour and a half every day trying to network.
Yeah, so I'm hearing some recurring things, being a person of character and reputation, and being a person that doesn't lead with your need, but being a person that leads with how can you create value for them, how can you provide for them. That's probably really going to help you get in front of the right people.
Absolutely. There's gazillions of everything, whether it's VCs or lawyers or real estate people, and you connect first personally. People have got to know you, like you, and trust you before they're going to write a check that's big enough to buy a house.
And a person's got to know themselves and know who they are before someone else can know, like, and trust them. If they don't know, like, and trust themselves, how can somebody else?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the more authentic and real you are, the better people are going to open up to you.
Hey, so switching gears a little bit, what's a really useful investor online resource or app that you like?
My top go-to to find where the best deals are happening, where the top VCs, where the top angels are, is called CB Insights. And this is kind of a premier. It's free. I get a newsletter from them every few days where they've done just amazing research. I tweet often with information. If you follow me on Twitter, it's at Judy Robinett. I just did one recently and it had the top 120 angel groups. Who's doing the best early stage investing? How much money is being spent on real estate investing? So this is a powerful resource. Another one is PitchBook. You know, both the Wall Street Journal and New York Times have a section that's devoted to deals. And I often look at those so I can look at comparables. So if somebody brings me a deal, and I think, what would be an exit? How much would this person make, or how much would an investor make if they did an exit? I can go research and find out what that is.
These resources are fantastic. I think I know what all my listeners are going to be doing this weekend. You've given a lot of great material for us here. What are some of the best things that you can purchase for less than $100 that have the greatest immediate impact on your life, Judy?
I would tell you to find 4 individuals that you think you want to know, have a part of your network, and invite them, take them to lunch. Honestly, you would be amazed. Most people will help you if you ask. And so I would find 4 people. Now, 2 of the secrets in my book, I talk about the golden questions. So when you meet someone and you kind of tell them what your goals are, where you're going, first question, what other ideas do you have for me? And number 2, who else do you know I should talk to? And this provides perfect information in context, and it also has the best information or the best people out of all those 632 that they know. So what ends up happening is you network up and out. And this is how I ended up with billionaires in my network. And over the years, I found out that's powerful to get the right information and the right people. So take a few people to lunch.
When you take someone to lunch, those people that you take to lunch might not be the right person for you. I've actually read before that using those exact words, who else do you know that I should talk to, triggers something in the brain of those people so that they can refer you to the right person that's the best connection for you.
Yes, absolutely. So I do it automatically when I meet people, and this is how I ended up getting labeled this great networker, and I didn't realize it, but I have this Rolodex in my head, and so I'll meet someone and I'll think, how can I help this person? It's like, Keith, how can I help you build your podcast audience? And I do that automatically, but a lot of people, they don't really think about what resources that they have available to them. And if you ask them that, you'll literally see them turn their head like they're thinking, and they are, and they'll go, oh, you should talk to my Uncle Bill. And it's amazing. So once in a while, someone will ask me something that right off the top of my head, I can't think of a good connection. I'll send an email out to 10 people in my network. I will always get an answer. It is never from the person I thought it would come from. So this is really a way to crowdsource for the best information.
That's a great answer. Some say that some people don't lack resources, they just lack the resourcefulness. You might already have someone in your network that knows someone else that you just don't know about yet.
Boy, that's a perfect comment, Keith. My bottom line formula is really quality relationships plus strategy equals whatever outcome you need. Those 2 things. And what you're hitting on is strategy. And I talk in my book and I tell people, learn to be scrappy. There's never a perfect time. You're always going to have obstacles. So given we have A and B, but we don't C and D, how can you get to E? And you always can. You can be resourceful. You can be creative. And if you just try it a few times, then you're like shocked. And then you start doing it and you watch yourself go on a much higher trajectory to success.
Well, one sort of a question that I like to ask interviewees here at the end is, what ideas and information would you have for a young 24-year-old investor today that all your collective contacts and experience and wisdom have shown you? What would you tell them?
The first thing I would do is find a mentor. And this is actually pretty simple. Like I mentioned, there's incubators, there's college courses, there's professors that teach this. Find a mentor and just sit down. This could be one of the people you take to lunch and say, will you help me learn about this? This is one of my goals, is to become an investor. The other thing is to sit in on some of the pitch events so you can see how pitches go, what the investors are looking for, learn about the funding ecosystem. You can do that easily online by just Googling. I would also follow a couple of the top bloggers. 2 of my favorites. Number 1 is Fred Wilson out of Union Park in New York. He's arguably one of the top VC guys in the world. He invested in Twitter, in LinkedIn. Brad Feld out of the Foundry Group out of Denver. So there's some very wonderful bloggers out there that you can learn everything you would want to know about investing. What is a term sheet? What terms should I avoid? Where is the best place to go? So all of this information now is almost open source. You can find it. You can also go to the National Venture Capital Association or the Angel Capital Association. Both of those have online platforms that they have all kinds of resources for you. And then finally, I will get you some information keys, some articles that would help. There's just a few key articles like you need to learn what a business model is. How are you going to make money? And I have an article that's taken from the book Business Model Generator that's really good. And then I have one on how to avoid hair on the deal. Sometimes people will come to you with what looks like just a wonderful deal, and then you do a little research and you find out they haven't even incorporated the company. They've taken money from 3 cousins and 4 uncles, and there's nothing in writing, so those people are likely to come back and sue you later. So I'll get those articles to all of you. And I'm happy. I mean, if you want to write to me on LinkedIn or tweet, I'm happy to respond to you.
Okay, great. I might put some of those resources in the show notes. Well, hey, Judy, this has been great. How else do my listeners find out more about you?
I've got a website, www.judyrobinett.com, no E on the end of Robinett, and certainly there's great value in my book. And I can say that honestly. I get emails from people all around the world.
Yeah, it's certainly been enormously well received. Hey, well, thanks so much for coming on to Get Rich Education today, Judy.
Thank you so much, Keith.
You've been listening to the Get Rich Education podcast, telling you what the wealthy won't tell you about real estate and investing. If you enjoyed the show, please take a minute to visit iTunes and leave your comments.
Nothing on this show should be considered specific, personal, or professional advice. Please consult an appropriate tax, legal, real estate, financial, or business professional for individualized advice. Opinions of guests are their own. Information is not guaranteed. All investment strategies have the potential for profit or loss. The host is operating on behalf of Get Rich Education, LLC exclusively.